210. Todd Medina, SoulogyOneStudios. What's going on here? Democracies, aristocracies, oligarchies, monarchies, hierarchies, presidents, and popes. What's the real dope? What's this all about? Faith, hope, doubt? That's all that earth stuff, man. I am a multi-dimensional, high-vibrational, evolutionary being, and I'm tired of hiding it. I am soul. I don't care who or what tried or is trying to deceive us. Call it the devil or another's Messiah, prophet, or God. It's all the same to me. Whoever they are, they can never take our souls, and that's when we came here to learn. From the burn of being wrong, denying who we are, taking orders, lawless laws, a branded existence, but not anymore. I am divinity. Yeah. All right. The power we hold to mold the future, heavenly nirvana. From the inside, present, eternal. It's time to be a bolder flame. The game isn't the same. We are the spirit science synthesis, the action of conscious thought, alignment, transmuting to a living wisdom. Yeah. No longer dreaming the life, I am living the dream. How's it going, everybody? Todd Medina, Soulogy Network. We're going to have an exciting show here in just a couple of minutes. We're going to kick it off with a really cool brother that we just met, and I think we're going to have a lot of future collaborations together. Let me just get set up here and make sure everything's cool. Hello, Janet. How you doing? Katarina, Philip Weinstein. How you doing? And Nasia Sia. Thank you for your continued love and support and contributions. We've got some great long-awaited news coming up in the Soulogy community that I'm not going to get the cart before the horse like I have so many other times, but we are real close to doing something we've been wanting to do for a long, long time. We got 38 people in the house. Welcome, everybody. Sunshine Love, Hope Robin Parks, Cricket Holden, Lodi Jensen from Denmark. Deborah Norrie's in the house. Thank you, Deborah, for your incredible and timely alignment and love and support yesterday, today, every day. Shizuka Charday, Sue Baxter Fitz, Iona Hook, Melissa Chapman's in the house. Melissa gave Soulogy its first opportunity ever to perform at her metaphysical shop in July 1st of 2017. So she's always got a warm place in my heart. Selene Apodaka. Selene Terry Apodaka. And Naveen over in the Netherlands is here. Jess Lewis is here. Okay, let's get this thing going. Got a beautiful brother I'm going to introduce you to. For those of you who don't know me, this is the Soulogy Network. My name's Todd Medina. This is our primary, kind of our flagship show, and it's a broadcast. It's called SOULSPEAKS 5D. It's a conversation. And today we're having a conversation with, let me bring my guest on, Mr. Paul Hanrieder. This is him here. I just messed that up. I had you in there by yourself. How you doing, Paul? How's it going?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm fantastic. I mean, I'm absolutely, I feel like I'm on ayahuasca. You know, I do. It's like crazy. It is. It's like, everything's like magnified, like I'm on plant medicine or something. Now, Paul reached out to me on a subject that very few people talk about. And my divine partner talks about it. And I have some knowledge through my relationship with her. Paul's is a little, I think in terms of what I understand about the subject that we're going to talk about, it has a little broader, I don't know if that's the right term, at least from my perspective, because my perspective has been more of a personal thing in a divine conscious union. But I do understand what he's talking about, because as an artist and as a creator, I realized a long time ago when I went celibate for almost 5 years that energy that I was putting into my work was pure sacred sexuality, and I know the magic that it offers. So let me just lead in with this. I'm not going to read this whole bio, but I'm going to cover these the points that I think are important. Paul Hanrieder is challenging all facets of the societal shame and guilt around sexuality, and in a powerful way. Sacred sexuality has been deeply subjugated and hidden because of its sheer power for the change in this world. Sexuality has the power to heal, empower, and enlighten us in incredible and divine ways. And let me just be clear, everybody. I know we have a very conscious community here, but when we're talking sexuality here, we're talking soul. We're talking spirit. We're not talking porn. We're not talking, the human, diversion that we had, the conditioning that we had. The knowledge has been hidden and made illegal for most of recorded time. The creation power is available to each and every one of us, but it has been considered too powerful for common people to possess. Paul's done his homework. There's no doubt. Hence the shame and guilt that has been built around it. I'm here to bring the true power of sexuality and unconditional love back into the light to help people awaken and enlighten themselves. This is his life purpose. His studies include shamanism and neuro-linguistic programming. I think that's what NLP is, belief reprogramming, tantra, and a vast array of experiential development courses that has allowed him to look deeply into all facets of himself. Paul is also developing a range of workshops, some experiential, that will allow people to more deeply understand the power of sexuality and to begin to use in their own way in day-to-day life experiences. So that's powerful. I'm excited to be talking about this. I'm just going to lead in with this one thing, and that is that, after everybody's gone through what we've gone through and got to the point where we realized that all that crap was shrouded in our root chakra. There was a reason that this thing was set up the way it was. There was a reason that sex was taboo. There's a reason that all that crap was shrouding our root chakra, sacral chakra, and all that stuff was kept so deep in there, all the traumas and the pains and the ancestral violations and all the stuff, right? Incest, molestations, rapes, everything, energetically and literally. And the reason for that is because they want the you, me, we, and it that devised this perfect order of earth realm wanted to keep us away from the true power, which is what your bio is talking about. So let me start with this. How in the hell did you get into this in the first place? Have you been on I guess you've been on searching your whole life, I guess, to expand. And did you come across it, or did you always have an inkling for it?
Well, I had an interesting life. I kind of started off, I don't know, afraid of sexuality and a world where things like Me Too and men were too powerful and they took and that kind of stuff. And I ended up in my life in a marriage that wasn't filled with a lot of sexuality, a lot of shame and guilt on my side. I grew up Catholic, and about 7 years ago, I started to want more in my life. And when you're in a sexless marriage, guess what? You study a lot. You make sure that it's not you, and you didn't do something wrong, and you're performing well. But as I dug deeper, and then I got into law of attraction stuff and deep spirituality stuff, and I started to see a real huge connection between our creation energy. If you go back and Think and Grow Rich, and a lot of these books that have been modified, all these magnates that were making billions of dollars were actually very torrid sexual people, and they knew how to use and channel their passion and their sexual energy from their personal life into business. And that's the literal power of creation. You can create a baby through sexuality. You can also create almost anything. But the world teaches us to be ashamed about it, and you got to just find one partner for the rest of your life, and force us to choose at a young age, and people are just distraught and they don't know what it is. Most people don't know what energetic sexuality is. They don't know how to pull energy into their body and use sexual energy to have pleasure, which is our connection to the divine. But it's also, every drug can be made by the body. You can get high on your own sexual energy and passion and excitement, and it's
no wonder I like myself so much. Just kidding. I'm joking. I'm joking around. This is powerful. I tend to make a lot of jokes and laugh, but this is really, really powerful. One thing I remember when I started, I'm 57 Sunday, and I remember when I started, one of the first two books I got was Think and Grow Rich. And Napoleon Hill has the chapter on sexual transmutation. And I read that chapter 50 times as a 22, 23-year-old. And even through the years, I always had it in my library. And I never understood what the hell he was talking about. I never could get it.
And they took all the good stuff out to make sure that nobody would.
Yeah. He actually says in the book that it'll jump out at you. You'll know.
Yeah.
That, having said that, and then as well as when you're referring to, and this is something that I've discovered in the divine conscious union I'm in, is that this sexual energy is obviously in this realm. There's a physicality, but there is, more importantly, it's an energetic thing. And so when you talk about with this energy, we can birth a child. I know, like in my situation, in my relationship, but also others that I see around that are in the community, they actually birth an energetic child. Soulogy itself is an energetic child of a divine conscious union of two people coming together, and through Harioscamos and through the practice of sacred sex. And when I say sacred sex, you know what I'm talking about. This is not the physical thing that we're talking about. That's the icing on the cake or whatever. But yeah. So you get that. And now, where are you gaining your knowledge from? Are you reading this stuff? Are you tapping into infinite intelligence? I mean, you obviously would have had to go back, I'm guessing, and really researched, some of the ancient texts and stuff like that.
Well, one really good book that I encourage a lot of people to read is something called the Magdalene Manuscript. The Magdalene Manuscript talks about Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene is spoken of in the Bible and in the Catholic Church, this prostitute that Jesus knew. The actual story and what you can find out through that book is Mary Magdalene wasn't actually a prostitute. She was what they called an initiate in the temple of Isis. And she was a high priestess, well, not high priestess, but a priestess that was called into Jesus's life. And she shared conscious sacred sexuality with Jesus and actually enlightened him to the point that he could become an ascended master upon his resurrection. What's also in that book is Mother Mary, the Virgin Mary in the Bible, was actually a high priestess in the temple of Isis, and she, using the conscious sexuality stuff that's subjugated, she was able to have a virgin birth. She didn't even have to have sexuality in her life to have Jesus come into her and be born. So Jesus was an enlightened master, basically by acts of conscious sexuality between Mary Magdalene and Jesus. He became enlightened. Those capabilities, I believe, in my past, I was a priest in the Temple of Isis. I know those practices. As I research them more and I understand things, I pull bits of information from all manner of different courses, different healing modalities, all these kind of things, start to bring them together in a conscious way to create something that's never really existed in this timeline, and create something very powerful that you can start to teach people. Because once you have full connection without shame and guilt to your sexuality, that's your personal power. You were talking about your bottom three chakras are all blocked up, our root, sacral, solar plexus. Until we get those really flowing, we can't be in possession of money. We can't be connected to earth. We can't be really truly grounded until all that stuff is flushed out of our system. And the power of sexual energy, orgasm, using self-pleasure for yourself to flush your body, that's a really key way to start to clear out those channels in your central channel down the middle of your chakras. There's a gentleman, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but there's a guy named Wilhelm Reich that was back in the time of Freud. Wilhelm Reich spoke of something called orgone energy. Orgone energy is the universal energy and its flow and everything that we're doing. Well, orgone energy, he basically proved is related to sexual energy and orgastic flow. Most people, by not having a lot of sexuality in their life or having orgasm, he actually did a huge study that basically proved that people that were criminal, insane, maladjusted were people that did not have good sexuality or orgasm in their life. And he basically showed that people that were regularly orgasm were clearing out their system. People that can't meditate, for example, you go and have an orgasm for yourself through self pleasure, and you'll be in a basic meditative state, and you can sit there with a quiet mind, relax. But most people struggle for 10 years to try and find a way to quiet their mind when it's fully accessible through just the very conscious act of pleasure for themselves.
Now, let me ask you this. Okay, so if somebody were just delving into this today,
Mhm.
where would you start them? Where would you suggest that they start?
um, well, the biggest key for everyone is self love, and we're in a world where relationships and all this kind of stuff, we're trying to get people to love us and have somebody that we can share time with, so we can have sexuality and all this kind of stuff. I would get them to start on themselves. A lot of people are being asked to go into be alone and have time for themselves, and to help them build a self love practice that includes self pleasure, which is your own orgasm and these kind of things, would be huge. It'll balance their system. It'll clear if you're in a really bad state and you're really pissed off and excited and a lot of cortisol going through your system. uh, the hormones that you need to get rid of all that stuff is released naturally in your body through orgasm. So teaching people how, like, not the act of self pleasure, but teaching them that they need to use that self pleasure and caring for their body and learning sensuality. Most people aren't even in their body, so to get people grounded enough that they can get in their body and they can feel their own pleasure is huge. um,
And of course, and we're not talking about, and like I said before,
uh-huh.
in my checkered history, I'm not judging anybody. I'm still, by some people's standards, a heathen, but it's not turning on porn.
No.
And we're talking about something different. Now, I want to ask you too, because I don't want to get too far away from where you're at.
Uh-huh.
When you're talking about self pleasure,
Uh-huh.
we can talk about things in the physicality, but also we're talking energy here. We happen to be biological, whatever you want to call this, that this vessel that we have, an expression of energy in matter, right? So my question is,
Uh-huh.
can we, it doesn't necessarily have to be masturbation. Self pleasure can be, and I'm this is the question. I'm not making a statement, but for me, we use me as an example. I have a lot of sexual energy.
Uh-huh.
That energy, last night, I was hanging out with my friend. I said, I got to go,
Uh-huh.
and not to go self pleasure in the stereotypical way, but I came in here, I turned on some music, I wrote some words out, and I started recording, making art, making a creation. This is self pleasure to me. This is an energetic sexual release. How is that related? And are you talking about one in this? Are they one and the same thing in a sense?
They can be. Like I said, most people need to get into their body more. So anything that's touch or sound or that makes you feel kind of grounded into your body and into your space is going to help you feel more. And a lot of people are lacking feeling, like tactile feeling on their body. Simple things like rubbing your hands and the little hairs across the back of your arm can be intensely pleasurable, but most people are so numb they don't even recognize that. So starting to breathe and get conscious about their breath and calming themselves and getting out of stress responses and that kind of stuff, which you're talking about, is music and creating and doing
Yeah.
something that's honoring you, and it's self-love. Self-pleasure is basically self-love. It's like, so you chose to step out of serving someone else through a conversation or whatever into serving yourself and
Yeah.
taking that time for yourself. Now, once you incorporate sexual energy, the masturbation components or those kind of things, you start to flush and move energy in your body
Mm.
much more quickly. And there's things like fire breath and other things that are used to magnify it, because a lot of the sexual energy that we have right now is just like a genital hiccup, and it's actually depleting of the body. But when people are taught to breathe and use their Kundalini energy and to bring it up and to start to shift inside their body, they can have massive explosions of energy that literally will heal you at a cellular level. You set things like intention
Yeah.
with orgasmic energy, and it starts to change your world, your fabric of your time. When an orgasm comes, you can put it into your light body and you can expand your being, where most people are just taught that it just kind of spews around the room energetically. um, these things need to be taught into people so that they're now consciously using these things for their benefit and healing
Yeah.
and trauma release, and huge things like that are massively possible, because the body goes into a complete parasympathetic like relaxation through the course of orgasm and sexual energy release. And it can allow traumas, which are attached energies that are stuck in your muscles and these kind of things, to be flushed out of the system. um, but nobody
No,
teaches that. Go ahead.
no, I was going to say, and two, I've experienced, and I know others have, the orgasms through different chakras,
Mm-hmm.
which is not a physical orgasm, although there's been, you know,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes a little something happening, but
Mm-hmm.
this is what you're talking about when you're saying bringing it up through the Kundalini channel, through
Mm-hmm.
the chakra channel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is what you're saying with intention,
Mm-hmm.
putting intention behind it, that you can actually, you can actually create the miracles by the human standards, miracles of healing, that type of thing.
Create and heal, and eventually you'll move to a space where that bliss will go through your body. From like, I was having lunch today and it was really enjoyable and it tasted amazing, and that orgasmic energy starts to fill your body just from eating something, or having a good experience with someone, or
Yeah.
just being really grateful for something. You're just like, oh,
I
hallelujah.
know, I know. I totally get that. People always say, "Why do you always make those noises when you're eating?" Like, because that's what I feel.
Yeah.
So much of this stuff that I in my personal journey, I was dabbling in or even doing and didn't even know it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like our natural state. It's like our natural functioning state.
It's our
Um,
birthright, and it's been taken from us. Very.
Now, well, we're here to take it back, and I'll take mine back every day. I thought I was losing my mind there for a minute. I feel like I'm 16 years old.
It'll make you a kid.
Now, let's make it. Something's happening to me. I don't know. Something's been happening to me. I'm like, whoa, what? That's not normal. Uh, but seriously, um, it is such an important subject, because it's really the last leg of this thing. It's that there's so much involved with what we open up when we start diving into this. And what I love about where you're starting out with this is that we don't need anyone else to do this. When you get to that level, that's another level, or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is something that all of us can do for ourselves, because it does it is rooted in like you said, something about people are not even in their skin, but I mean it's rooted in this body, which is physical as it is really a Merkaba. It's really it's a universal vehicle. And so it still applies. It
Mm-hmm.
still applies, whether we're a straight light body or a light body inside of this body, or however you want to put it. Now, so the step one would be to get in touch with yourself. No pun intended. Uh, and really honoring yourself, I guess is what you're saying, and respecting yourself and loving yourself
Mm-hmm.
with no fear, no embarrassment, no nothing, no blocks, no nothing. And
Mm-hmm.
because it seems like the practice itself would create higher levels of awareness and everything that goes with it. Now, my follow up is, I know from studying, and I didn't understand it 20, 15 25 years ago the way I do now, but studying sex,
Mhm.
studying the different, the tantric and all that other stuff. There is a school of thought that when it comes to a man, that he would hold in his orgasm 7 or 8
Yeah.
encounters.
Yeah.
Is that blasphemy to this? Is that just propaganda, or is this related somehow? And how would it be?
Well, there's different schools of thought. Don Chen is that kind of thing you're talking about, your Don Chen energy. A lot of Eastern Tantra and all that kind of stuff will say that if you have an orgasm and you release sperm and all that kind of stuff, you're releasing sacred life force energy from your body. Um, the schools that I've studied with are more shamanic. And basically, if you're having low grade orgasms, like you grade them on a like a 1 to 10, anything below 3, you're actually depleting your body. So that's what
Hmm.
most teenage boys are kind of cranking out in the bathroom or whatever. And but how many teenage boys are doing this 3 times a day? They'd all be dead if that was absolutely true in a lot of terms. Uh,
Yeah.
even even
Well, I
older,
don't
but
know.
but once you can get to an energetic level, it's actually energizing. A
Yeah.
partner that
Yeah.
is able of moving their breath and energy, you can have sex for 3 days straight if you want to, and men can be multi-orgasmic as well.
Yeah.
Uh, it just may
Yeah.
not be that they produce something, but they can still have energetic energy passing through their body. And to believe that sex ends at ejaculation for men is kind of craziness. It's not
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with that. I
Mm,
agree with that. And I can feel every one of those descriptions that you gave, the 3 or less, uh, the 33s,
mhm.
like the ones that are happening now. I don't know what's going on here,
Yeah.
but this seems to be something that is that it would only make sense is that more people are expanding their consciousness,
Mhm,
that consciously or not,
mhm,
that there is a wider activation of this sacred sexual energy, whether people are really even know what's happening or not. But
mhm.
it's good to get it out here. Now, what would you say would be the next step after beginning? If someone that delves into this now, beginning with the self love and the self care and that type of thing, what would you say would the next step be?
Well, this is the root of everything. Basically, as a human experience, part of it is to be a sexual being, but it's also interrelationship with partners and connection and intimacy and all these kind of things. So basically, if you start to kind of get comfortable with yourself and you're loving yourself, a new grade of relationship can happen. A lot of relationships, we're in a world where there's 60% divorce rates and these kind of things because people are going into hopefully conscious union, but in a way asking for people to meet them in love and to fill their empty cup and all this kind of stuff. So they're basically finding that very hollow over time. They're not
Yeah.
being met. So there's a whole new divine spectrum of unconditional love where we got to start teaching people that they can approach others from it like conditional love is we put a box around a partner and it's like I'm going to be jealous unless you do this and this and
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
to be married to me and you can't look at another woman, you can't have any other thoughts. Well, geez, it's impossible. That's part of being human. um, so we're really changing the whole philosophy of relationship. And
Yeah.
there's lots of people that talk about polyamory and all these kind of things, but a lot of those things are created around still conditional love.
Yeah.
So getting into a place where you can love a person and it's all about communication and saying when you're attracted to someone else, and it doesn't mean anything against you, but I'm a human
No.
being and I'm here for the smorgasbord of life and to try out all the experiences. And every time I kind of kill a little part of myself to satisfy my partner,
Yeah.
then we're letting ourselves down and we're not
Absolutely.
really doing the conscious work. So
So in other words, as an example, you can be in a divine conscious relationship. You can be out doing whatever you do, and you come across other people. You can feel the sexual energy through the connection. You don't have to act on it. I mean, but you can honor that connection and not feel guilty about it. And I think that's what you're trying to say. That's an example. I'm not saying that's everything you're saying, but
That's an example. And even if you did share sexuality with another partner, what's a person that gets divorced, goes and has sex with a bunch of other people, and then remarries that person 10 years later because they fall back in love with them? We're constantly changing our needs, and our partners may not be advancing as quickly as us. And if we're in a place where we can consciously discuss with them, and we're not holding ourselves back just to have that
yeah,
partner still be part of our life,
yeah,
it's okay. You don't have
yeah,
to say F you, I hate you, and I'm leaving. You can
mm,
say, hey, we're in different places, I'm going to move over here for a little while, but if things change, maybe we'll get back together again, or whatever. And it's about loving
mm,
everybody you met. Why would you throw out all
yeah,
those beautiful experiences after 15 years of marriage? You
yeah,
don't.
yeah. And so, okay, so now also there's the factor of the creative aspect of it.
Hmm.
How does this roll into that in terms of creating? You made the comment about you'll never be able to manage money or do this or that if your lower three chakras are closed down.
Hmm.
Now that they're opening up, what does it just happen automatically? Uh, is our energy so profound that it just starts to pull stuff towards us, or do we have to? Is there something we have to do to go out there and attract certain things that we want to us?
Well, there's spiritual work and concepts that have to go in parallel. Good example, Michelle, just before her show, Michelle Phillips, she's clearing blocks around money and these kind of things. The sexual energy and the movement of the sexual energy doesn't actually clear the blocks, because those are energetic in your head, your beliefs, they're in your genetics, all these kind of things. But once you get that energy flowing, and then you combine it with other bits like what Michelle taught, she's using techniques to clear blocks, belief reprogramming, using NLP, um, having people be around higher vibrational people. The minute you have that energy at your exposure, uh, as those blocks open up in your system, it's going to pour directly into it. And you use things like uh, connecting your sexual energy to what you want. It's like, okay, I want to manifest a six-figure business, and I want to have this money coming in so I can travel and all this kind of stuff. Once you clear your money blocks and you have good energy flowing through your creation energy, your sexual energy, that stuff's just going to start showing up like you would not believe. But it's not releasing the work; it's giving you a foundation that makes very fertile ground. When you do that work and you break through those
Mm.
blocks, it's like the garden; it just shoots 0 to
Yeah,
60 immediately.
yeah, yeah. I'm experiencing some of this, and I'm sure others are. Um, and you're really making me giving me some clarity, because I guess what I'm looking at is it is the physical, or the most physical thing, or part of us, or whatever, that in other words, it's like the closest thing to the non-physical, energetic, sexual, sacred sexual energy, and it's actually one and the same. So you're saying really that it is a not only a great compliment, but a necessary compliment, really, when you get right down to the brass tacks, uh, of of ascension, of awakening, of expansion. Period.
It's
Uh,
the bridge into your full creative, expansive energy. That's your bridge to divine, to flow, to higher energies. It all comes into our body through that. And once those channels are open and healthy and regularly flushed out, it just flows into your life, and it just shows up because there's no blocks. And I'd see it. It's like a pipe cleaner that you're running in and out of your system all the time. And as you're doing that daily work and you're removing those blocks, it flushes it right out of your system. It's just like washing you clean.
yeah, yeah. Awesome. Now, tell us about. I mean, you've dedicated your life to this. Is that correct?
I'm transitioning into it. I've been an
Okay.
engineer for 20 years plus,
An
and
engineer. No wonder you were so uptight.
yeah,
I'm just kidding.
yeah.
I'm just kidding. Any engineers out there? I'm just joking. But I made
Engineers
calls. I
have a
made
part.
calls. Huh?
engineers like
It's,
to take stuff apart, and you start taking reality apart
well,
and understanding why it's broken, you
yeah,
all of a sudden see some real big cool stuff like this, right? So
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
yeah.
In fact, my first mentor was an engineer. Um, and that was a bad joke. but so no, but now that you're making this transition, I mean, so I think you mentioned now what are you doing with this? You're writing. I think you said you're doing some workshops. Is that correct?
I'm starting to develop all this stuff. I in my life I've also found out I started to have relationships after my divorce, and I thought I'm having relationships with women, and I had women start to show up in my life for healing. There's levels of sacred sexuality where you can uh, I don't know if you've heard terms, but women can be cracked wide open through orgasm and beautiful, amazing inrushes of energy. Well, I started to have some of this show up in my life in that 7 year period where I started to transition. So part of the healing component is working with women in that way to open their bodies and that kind of stuff. Um, but also very clearly learning that there's traumas built into bodies. For example,
Yeah.
women, like if they're squeezed too tight, that can create a trauma in earlier in life. And then every time they have an experience with a boyfriend or a lover or whatever, and they get squeezed too tight, all of a sudden they're like going back into traumas. So walking people through those kind of things and allowing them to flush those from their system and healing them from that perspective. Tantra events where you get people to experience things like conscious touch, breathing your body so that you're breathing complete energy right into like your root and sacral chakra. You can't move energy without breath. And most people are in the top third of their lungs for breathing because they're in stress all the time.
Yeah,
So
somebody, Jody Lee, who's pretty well versed out there, she's puts out a lot of good stuff. She was mentioning that earlier a couple of times, and maybe another person about breath. How does that relate? Because I mean, this is such a broad subject, and I know we're getting a general overview of it, but just to get and love to collaborate with you again on this because this is so much material and it's so important. But how I guess to leave everybody today with something in terms of what that they could focus on. Of course, you rolled it out in the beginning of the show, but it would seem to me that it's important to get into the breath in regard to moving energy, whether it be having a physical orgasm or having a soulgasm in a chakra or whatever the case is. How important how important is that, and what kind of guidelines or tips can you give us on that?
Okay, so to be conscious in your body is the very first thing. So learning a grounding practice, for example, how do you ground yourself so that you're fully in your butt? Most people are so far in the future. It's like I'm going to make some money and things are going to get better next week and all this kind of stuff. They end up their whole auric system is about a foot above their head, so they're not in their body. They're in this fight or flight, trying to get enough money so they can go on vacation and get a rest and then recover, and then they come back and they're stuck again. So you need to build a personal practice of taking time for yourself. So schedule a date night with yourself once or twice a week, and where you're just going to go sit in your room, breathe really deeply, like conscious breaths where you literally breathe right down to your genitals in your body and feel your tummy expand and hold your breath down there, and then you basically breathe in as long as you can and then breathe out an equal amount of time. So you count it. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then hold it for 6, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and get into a conscious breath where you're literally flushing all our system out. Once you get all that carbon monoxide and dioxide out of your system, you start to get into this relaxed state, and it starts to work on the other chemicals in your body that are imbalanced. Once you're at that point, start conscious touch, like feeling yourself and breathing deeply. And when you feel pleasure as you're touching your arm, breathe that breath of that pleasurable energy and pull it into your heart and start to feel that energy start to expand. And then you're like, holy cow, I can feel pleasure, and I don't have to wait for my lover to come home. You don't have to get to the point where you're self-pleasuring yourself if you don't want to. Just the fact that you're taking that time for yourself and saying, I'm important, everybody else can wait for a little while, and is the very first act of conscious self-love.
That's right.
when
To
people,
thine own self be true.
yeah,
I had a coach in 8th grade. He called it Takano power. Take care of number one.
exactly.
Yeah, I had a question for you too. You were talking breathe. Oh, I was going to make a comment, a validation, because you reminded me of it, because I remember in my probably mid 20s, 25, 26, I had my first, that I can remember, my first conscious Kundalini explosion out my head, And the reason it you jog my memory is because it came through a breathing exercise.
Uh-huh.
And so every night I would lay down, and the exercise was what you said. I think they called it box breathing.
Yep.
So
Square
so it was square breathing. Yeah. So and I was doing it for like 10 days, right? And then all of a sudden, just like that, it came right up my spine, blew out my head. It scared the living daylights out of me.
Yep.
Um, and there was not any self pleasure there. Now I was in a relationship that was very limited sexually, you know.
Yep.
Um, and so I wonder if there was a relation to that, because that felt like some kind of release brought on by that breathing. I don't know.
It's huge. Well, spontaneous Kundalini awakenings is what you're talking about. But basically, if people don't know, Kundalini is like a snake. It's our full power and sexual energy, and it's a snake that sits down at the bottom of our root. And basically, if you kind of squeeze your PC muscle, that's your muscle that kind of blocks your pee, if you squeeze it while you consciously breathe any sexual energy you have, and you can start to pull those two snakes up. And the snakes, if you've ever looked like the medical physician, there's a snake with two
Yeah,
snakes that come up and a staff. That's
yeah,
literally your Kundalini energy, and it basically goes up, and with each breath it'll cross itself at each of your chakra points. And if you pull it up consciously and inflate it with sexual energy or breath energy, you can get it up to the point where it's actually in your head. And then some really cool stuff happens, because there's like a chalice that's created between the two snakes and your pineal gland, and you can do alchemy and all these other things. But to have your Kundalini fully released like that can be very surprising to people. That's why it needs to be done in a place where they can be supported and that kind of stuff. But it can make massive change in their life. I don't know
yeah.
what happened to you after that, but it can blow you wide open, and things start to change really quickly because you're fully accessing
I
your entire power.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. No, that's a good question, and it's come up on shows before with other people, but I shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
I shut it
Yeah,
down because
go
it
ahead.
happened. It happened a second time, and the second time it happened, the same thing happened, except for my foot went onto the floor. I was on the bed,
Mm-hmm.
but I was staring at my feet. So I had one foot on the floor, but it was not a physical foot. And I
Okay.
was like about to get up, and I thought, oh, I think I'll put this one on the back burner for a while.
Okay.
But also, and getting back to this subject too, a lot of, let's say, a significant number of people that I've talked to, when I've asked them, what got you started on the path, uh, told me it was through sex.
Mm-hmm.
They told me that they reached a certain euphoric state, and they wanted to go higher.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, so I think that there's obviously a lot of evidence, and
Uh-huh.
it only makes sense. The place that was shrouded the most is where was done with intent, malice intent, basically, to keep
Yeah.
us from our power. Yeah. So
Did,
now you're are you writing a book now? Are you where do people find you now, as of
well,
right now?
I just set up a website. It's called sexualityrising.com. Sometimes you have to put www on the front if you can't get to it. But there's so much to cover here, and trying to find a good introductory step. Like you said, step one, how do we get into this? I'm starting to think about building a workshop that can teach people conscious breath practices, what fire breath orgasm and these kind of things are, how breath and flushing your system and setting intentions and that kind of stuff could be very powerful, and it creates a foundation for people to balance and ground themselves daily. Some of the shamanic paths I follow basically say having orgasm and using your sexual energy is like revving the engine in your sports car so you can get out on the highway. And when you get out on there, it's not all carboned up and you're backfiring and all this kind of stuff. You're preparing your energy in a way that will basically catapult you as
Yeah.
you further awaken.
Yeah.
You're fully in the tank, you're fully ready, your systems are all cleared out. We need to teach people that. And then
Yeah.
they still need some of those other modalities that are out there, like Reiki and craniosacral therapies and belief reprogramming and all these kind of things. It's all showing up for everybody, but I feel that this is a way to accelerate things very, very quickly for people.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
there's
you know,
both.
I don't believe in coincidences. I really don't.
Mhm.
And I got to say that you know, we all know that the energies are coming in faster at a right at wider birth every single day. We're moving at quantum levels now. But I've noticed that over, you know, over the last few weeks that the it wasn't even and it wasn't even a desire, but the need to have an orgasm was just a natural thing. And the thing was, is, or has been that, and it hasn't been like every day, you know, but I mean, it's been when it happens, it's extraordinary. I'm like going, what in the hell was that?
Uh-huh.
But it was all good. I know that. And in so many ways, like almost like the effects, I would describe it as being, you know, people talk about we have multiple bodies, you know, like 4 or 5 or 6 different bodies, that the effects were experienced, realized, and afforded to all these bodies. And I could actually feel it, you know, I'm like, wow, you know.
Uh-huh.
And the other thing I noticed too is the energy level goes up,
Uh-huh.
where in the old paradigm, the energy level will go down, right?
So next time in the middle of that, when you're at the height of your orgasm, pull it into your energy body instead of like flowing it out here or out your genitals. Just start
Mm-hmm.
to breathe it into expanding yourself, and you'll feel
Yeah.
it go into all those bodies, and you'll become physically, energetically bigger because you're magnifying that energy. Why send it out to the universe? You have no intention set on it, so
Yeah.
you need to create an intention on it. Send it into Soulogy, send it into the business, send it
Mm-hmm.
into yourself, and clean and heal yourself. And what a beautiful way to accelerate that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, my partner and I do some of that. And it's, and again, it's we're talking sacred sexuality here. You know, we were both celibate for a very long time. And you know, she lives in another country, or until later this week. And my point is, when we would spend time together, it could just be the right breast.
Mhm.
It could be a hand on her back. It could be, one day it was a pinky.
Mhm.
I was just, you know, stroking her pinky, and it was, you know, multiple orgasmic, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But and she's very well versed in this for many, many years. And she would say, I'm directing all of this to Soulogy.
Mhm.
I'm directing all of this to
Mhm.
us, or whatever.
Yep.
So this is a, you know, this is sacred ancient wisdom that has been around, is forever.
And this is
Yeah.
ordinary magic every single one of us has access to, but no one's been taught to refine it
Yeah.
and use it.
Until you arrived, and a few other people.
Mhm.
So now, do you have any videos out?
I don't. I definitely want to start some. There's one video I did a while ago with a lady named Vera Lou that was about relationships and changing the way to see relationships, and I can post that somewhere. It's one of my first videos way back when. But
Now, do you have a YouTube?
uh, I'm gonna start doing Facebook Lives here regularly, and I can
Okay.
start putting some of that stuff up. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's talk about that.
absolutely,
We'll talk about that offline.
perfect.
And because this is a platform for people like you.
Hmm.
We've got a strong community, and it's about to get even bigger with what we're about to kick off here. And so it takes, you know, it takes a lot of uh, the non-fun stuff out of the equation for people like you, who can then just focus on what their passion is and their mission is. And this is extremely important. So you've got us to the step one, which is really probably 10 videos, 10 hours of discussion. And then of course the reality that it's a transformational energy that affects all parts of our lives and existence, in essence, right?
Absolutely.
And so next, is there something you would recommend to the folks that are here today, our friends, in terms of, is there something they might want to read, something besides the first step that you gave us in terms of the self-love and self-care? Is there anything else that you could recommend?
Well, it's a really transformative time right now for everyone, and a lot of people, including myself, are looking for relationship, for support, and these kind of things. But it's not exactly the right time to do that right now. It's really about focusing on ourselves and really getting crystal clear on who we are and what we need, and these kind of things, using these practices to meet our physical needs, because everybody needs to have orgasmic energy pass through their body at times, and not being ashamed of that, because we're taught right from birth, don't touch yourself, don't do these things, and it's bad, but it's actually a very good thing. If you want to start flushing your system and getting better, instead of popping some drug or drinking a bunch of alcohol or whatever, an orgasm is going to release oxytocin and all these feel good things. It's a serious antidepressant. It's a serious major motivator inside your body. So if you start using this tool that the divine gave us without shame and without guilt, you can start making massive progress in your world, and focus on yourself, and work in community, and that kind of stuff. To say there's one book that details all this, I don't think I've found it. It's a little bit all over the place, and it's really obscure. The Magdalene manuscript is a beautiful book to talk about, and it talks about some of these orgasmic processes. It's no longer in print, so you got to go find it on Amazon or other things. There's tons of workshops. There's groups like ISTA, International Society of Temple Arts, which will put you into an experiential experience where you'll be able to be given tools and examine some of your shames and guilts. There's another one called Kadoshka. That's the Deer Tribe. It's a shamanic path that I'm kind of following, but they talk about the shamanic way of sexual energy, and how that reacts in our life, and it allows you to kind of explore it in a safe laboratory with other people that are trying to explore the same things, and it's a container that allows us to look at ourselves and see what's going on, and start to transition out of some of these shames and the programming that we have. So if anybody wants more information on that, just send me a message, and I can connect you. There's huge things. I've done something called shamanic de-armoring, where you use sexual energy for 14 days straight, and you basically smash the literal armor that's in your physical body out of your body, and then afterwards you go in a process of de-armoring your brain and your beliefs, because we're created in this way. And I could talk for an hour about what Wilhelm Reich teaches and what these kind of posture and stances are. People are like psychopaths and schizophrenics and orals and different things, and it shows some of the struggles they're going to have in their life path, all based around these things that are energetic. There's so much to share. We've only really skimmed the surface here, but there's a really clear story of how to deal with some of these blocks that we have in our world, and then open us wide. And people like me give permission to people that have shame just to have a discussion. I can sit down and have a discussion in a coffee shop for 3 minutes with a woman, and they're telling me about their first orgasm or ejaculatory or whatever, because it's okay with people, and people want to be known that it's okay. But the whole world has shamed us to say that that's not possible, and then they're thinking there's something wrong with them because of these things. And
well, we are the world now. So we're not going to be ashamed of it anymore.
Not at all.
And I can, yeah, because I mean, I was like you. I was raised Catholic for a while, and yeah, I thought, I did a number on myself for 10 or 15 years. Big time.
A lot of
Big
us.
time. Yeah. Yeah. Well, man, this has been really cool. I'd like to do something, I'd like to collaborate again. It's a very, very important subject. Probably could be the most important subject You know, I mean, other than the, you know, the basics of inner work or shadow work, or, you know, whatever you want to call it, the brutal honesty of the soul, being true to yourself, not BSing yourself. But this is actually, you know, something that is, that is, you know, offers so much, because in itself, it's clearing stuff out. It's just, I mean, you would do it with another person. Why wouldn't you do it with yourself? You know what I mean? And I'm not just speaking in the literal sense. I'm thinking, speaking in the energetic sense, and of course, from, you know, from the heart.
It's literally at the root of everyone's blocks.
Yeah. Well,
because it's our root
right.
chakra and we're blocked, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, okay, great. Yeah, I'd love to be a part of what you're doing, supporting you, and I think we'll be able to do that very quick. This is perfect timing, and would love to have you back on the show. I just want to say thank you very much for the work that you're doing.
I enjoyed it.
It's so important and so necessary. Um, and we have a suggestion here: do a breath workshop on the show. Just have us go through breath exercises. Yeah, that would be a good
I'm up
idea. Yeah.
for
Well,
it.
I mean, with what you're doing, you know, and I'm just, you know, that's just my, you know, producer mind is, you know, I could probably line out 100 different subjects or topics and subtopics with you in the chair, you know. So it's an
Okay.
excellent subject, and I'm glad that we finally are starting to get some more awareness around it. So yeah, we'll be here to support you do that. Thank you for coming on, and I'll be
Thank
in
you much.
touch with you. I'll be in touch with you soon. Sooner than now. Where are you located?
I'm in Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Okay, you're Canadian.
Yep.
Okay, cool. And that's, where is that, Alberta? Is that central?
That's one
Oh, you're
probably
mountain.
from
You're
BC
mountain time.
coast.
Well, are you mountain time? That's
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right.
Beautiful.
Well, you take care. Thank you, everybody. We've got another one tonight in about 7 hours, and with um, I'm really bad with names. Carrie Samadi out of South Africa. So thank you so much, Paul. I look forward to working with
Thanks,
you
Todd.
and
Me too.
talking to you again. You take
Thanks,
care.
everyone. Have a good day.
Be sure and put your links in the comments, Paul.
I will. Thank you.